What's good, Internet? My name is Attax. Welcome to my Backlash 2018 predictions video here on the channel. Coming up this Sunday, and hot off the heels of the greatest Royal Rumble, we have very little build for yet another pay-per-view, the first brand combined of this era, because obviously it's happened before, but the first one of this era having a dual-branded pay-per-view, the best of both worlds. Rest in peace to the mid-card. Anyway, as of right now, there are 8 matches announced. There is no kickoff match announced. I'm going to assume they're going to have one, either a random tag team match no one's going to care about, or a cruiserweight match that kind of no one's going to care about. So that being said, let us get to the 8 matches announced for this program. The first of which being the most house show match possible. The most thrown together, we need guys on the card house show match, and that is Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley take on Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And that literally got announced on Raw this week. So, A, there's no build. B, kind of who cares? And whenever I see a match that is A, looks like a house show match, and B, has no story, and C, kind of who cares, my response is, the faces win. So, Braun and Lashley, gonna win, whatever, moving on. Not important. So, maybe it'll build to something down the line, like for the next pay-per-view, but as of Backlash, really who cares? So, moving on to a match that does have a storyline. That is Daniel Bryan in his first singles pay-per-view match back versus Big Cass in his return from injury in his, obviously, match back from that. So this one I think could be interesting because I know the assumption out the gate is to assume Daniel Bryan because Daniel Bryan, and I think this could certainly be perhaps the best matchup, the best singles matchup that Big Cass has ever had because Daniel Bryan. And because he is a guy that wants to work every style with everybody and could make this amazing. But that being said, do you really have Big Cass lose here? If you're trying to make him a big deal, do you make him lose here? And more importantly, you could have Daniel Bryan lose here and it wouldn't really hurt Daniel Bryan. Like, it might hurt Big Cass because he's supposed to be a bigger deal than he actually is. And I think that you obviously have a number of outs here, right? Because you have the obvious way to go, the obvious path to run down is going to be Daniel Bryan and The Miz. And how do you get there? I mean, you don't need to really get there because it's built in. But I think the more interesting path is The Miz constantly messing with Daniel Bryan, but not actually getting his hands on him until, like, SummerSlam. So I think my predictions here, some of them depend on the match order. And it's very possible that if The Miz loses early on in the evening, which he certainly will, that later on in the evening, he costs Daniel Bryan his match against Big Cass, thereby having the winner be Big Cass. And it won't be a clean finish, obviously. Distraction, DQ, whatever. But I still think that somehow, some way, they might just give that win to Big Cass. AJ Styles just flying all over the place with his phenomenal self. There you go. Nice. Nice. Anyway, moving on. We have the charismatic Enigma and your U.S. champion Jeff Hardy taking on the Viper, the legend killer, Randy Orton. And I don't think Randy Orton needs that belt back. I think they are much better served having Jeff Hardy hold that U.S. title a little bit longer and kind of either doing an open challenge or taking on a number of heel opponents in the mid-card, perhaps Rusev. Like, there are ways you can go down there with Jeff Hardy because you've already been down that road with Randy Orton so many times. And he's not a guy who needs that mid-card belt. They gave it to him because, oh, now he's Grand Slam. Cool, fine. Move on. You could easily, at any given time, put Randy Orton back into a main event program because he's Randy Orton. He has that legacy, if you will. Nakamura, though. Wait, what? I don't know that I've ever seen a CPU match for a title in this game have a count-out victory. I don't think I've ever seen that. So, that's interesting. That one's on me for not making that CPU match a no-holds-barred match. I'm sorry. I botched it again. So I think keeping Jeff Hardy as your U.S. champion for at least a little longer could lead to some more interesting matchups, if you will. Anyway, moving on. We have this match. We have the Princess of Staten Island and Carmella, the women's champion on SmackDown, versus the Queen, Charlotte Flair. And obviously she won that match after cashing in her Money in the Bank contract as the longest reigning Money in the Bank holder of all time. And looking at how historically Money in the Bank holders have held the belt for, I don't think it's time just yet to get the belt off of Carmella. Now, I don't think it'll be a clean victory. I think certainly the Iconics could interfere in some way, but then again, so could Becky, so could Asuka. Like, there are different ways to handle that, but I don't think that they're going to put the belt right back on Charlotte right away. They always could. Look, anything can happen, and obviously, given the fact that most of these matches have just been kind of in this weird limbo thing since, like, Mania, it's hard to call any of this stuff with any real certainty because they've been in this weird holding pattern with the whole company to kind of get past the Greatest Rumble, and now you have Backlash like a week later. So, that being said, I think Carmella does retain the title just by hook or by crook. Perhaps DQ, perhaps a count out, perhaps something happens here. Perhaps it's not clean in any way, but I think when the night is over, Carmella is still the champion. Anyway, the other women's match here on the card is your Raw Women's Champion, the Irresistible Force, Nia Jax, versus Little Miss Bliss, Alexa Bliss, in her rematch clause match after losing the belt at WrestleMania. And do you put the belt back on Alexa? I think it's quite possible. I don't really have any good reason for that, but it's pretty clear they feel like Alexa is, at the top of the women's division, so it would not surprise me for her to get the belt back immediately. Not that I think the thing with Nia has been any kind of a flop or failure. There hasn't been enough of anything on TV to really discern since Mania, because you had Mania, then you had the Raw after Mania, then you had the brand split, then it's build for the Rumble where they didn't have any women in Saudi Arabia, and now all of a sudden, hey, it's Backlash. So the build here has been just baffling, and it's been kind of anyone who won a belt at Mania has had kind of a weird run and title reign. So that being said, sure, Alexa wins, and again, not clean, perhaps weirdly, perhaps some kind of a distraction, something, I don't know. But I think it is possible that Alexa gets that belt back. Anyway, moving on here, we have the Intercontinental Champion, the man, the architect, Seth freaking Rollins, taking on The Miz, the A-lister. And this one is the most easy to call match on this entire card because, as you can see, the US match is not in between guys on different brands. Because this is your weird, hey, we had a brand split in between two shows, and we have matches that were already set up, like The Miz getting his rematch for the IC belt, even though he's on SmackDown, and Rollins is on Raw. But because the US belt is not up for grabs between brands, then that means the IC belt is going to stay on the same brand it's on, which means that Seth Rollins wins that match. There is no reality in which you would have The Miz win here and bring the belt to SmackDown and have two mid-card belts on SmackDown. That makes zero sense to anybody. Now, when Sheamus and Cesaro were like, hey, we're going to win back the Raw tag belt and go back to Raw, perhaps those tag belts, because they are the color of the show, perhaps those tag belts have to stay put, but I don't see them saying, oh yeah, Miz won the belt, therefore Miz back on Raw. That would be weird and totally squandering the possibility of Miz and Daniel Bryan, while Daniel Bryan is still healthy. So, don't do that. Anyway, Seth Rollins gonna win. Charlotte here. Figure eight, Bridget, the bridge. That's it, Carmella. You tap or you snap. That's all she wrote. Tappa. That's it. That's the end. Now, there is one more interbrand match, and it is this one. It is the big dog, Roman Reigns, versus the right hand of destruction, Samoa Joe, in a match that I'm sure will be a fine and perfectly competent wrestling match. But also, they're on different brands, and therefore the consequences here are basically zero. So it's kind of hard to care. And honestly, I could see it going either way. Like, does a loss hurt Roman here? Not really. Does the loss hurt Joe here? Not really. Because they're both going to be in the top tier level of both brands. They're both going to be in the main event of both brands. So fighting each other is kind of inconsequential. And therefore, who's going to win? Well, you know what they say. Make Roman look strong. So, sure. Roman Reigns, whatever. Who cares? Again, no consequences, no furthering of any story. Who cares? Anyway, your main event. The man who would like to be introduced as the face who runs the place. AJ Styles taking on the master of the low blow, the cheap shot artist. Oh, I get it. The cheap shot artist, because he's the artist known as... Oh, I'm just putting that together now in my head. I'm like, oh, right. That's why he's calling him the cheap shot artist. Now I get it. But more importantly, the king of strong style. Shinsuke Nakamura in yet another world title match. And if he doesn't get this one, then what was the point of the heel turn? If he doesn't get this one, then what was the point of this program? If he doesn't get this one, then what was the point of making this match no DQ? And to be fair, in this match, the club could interfere. Joe could interfere. I don't see it happening, but he could interfere. Like, there are a number of ways to go with this, but I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, at the end of the night, they did this heel turn just to put the belt on Nakamura. Because why else would you do it? Like, what else would be the idea here if you're not going to give him a run as a heel champion and have faces chasing after the belt? Because the money is always in the chase. And historically, looking at Backlash, looking at world title changes, it's happened more than a few times. AJ Styles won his first WWE Championship at Backlash by punching Dean Ambrose in the balls. That happened. Go look it up. Last year, the modern-day Maharaja beat Randy Orton. So, historically, you've got the precedent for that belt changing hands at Backlash. And, because if you have Shinsuke lose here, then what do you do with him past that? Back to the mid-card? Something else? I don't know. Like, what do you do at that point? Because you can't put him on Raw. You already had your shakeup, so I don't know. It's very baffling. But I think by hook or by crook, because of the no DQ stipulation, that Nakamura will somehow get this thing pulled out. And dear God, if AJ, at this point, has not figured out to wear a cup and protect his meat and potatoes, what is he doing? I don't know. Because they're going to get mashed again. Anyway, that's it. Backlash 2018 in the books. Again, hard show to predict because there's been almost no build for it. And I need story. I need something to latch onto to predict a winner when it's just matches for the sake of matches. It's way harder. Anyway, I'm Attack Slug. Thanks for watching. More videos every day. Every single day. See you next time right here on this channel. And I'm out.